Thank you for that. Dr. Chung, Dr. Magari alluded to when we go back, right? Like there's going to be a when we go back phase. That's hopefully sooner than later, but eventually we will be going back. What are some of the challenges that businesses are going to be looking at? Like there's always an unintended consequence, right? Like being on the side that things are closed right now, the intended consequence is to slow COVID. But there's got to be an unintended consequence when we go back into the work environment that it's been sitting for so long. And obviously cleaning is one of them. Is there anything else that we should really be focused on or thinking about in order to make the environment healthier overall?
Sure, and we kind of have to break it up into, you know, I would say those would be the more non-essential businesses because they have kind of evacuated or they're not working at the workplace. So certainly, I think Dr. Magari mentioned this earlier, some indoor air quality issues. There may be some humidity issues, especially in areas that are ventilation starved areas, or because of the lack of folks in the building to generate heat, the amount of cooling that is required is much less now. And so what happens is without kind of prolonged cooling, the humidity may build up. So those are things that we have to keep in mind. There may be some preventive maintenance type activities that can help with that. The other thing we need to think about is that there is typically a lack of use of, say, the water or some of the water features and other things. So when that happens, then there may be issues with stagnation. Now, if you go back to some of our blogs on mold and Legionella, especially for Legionella, stagnation can cause the amplification of the bacteria. So there's some, you have to kind of do that risk assessment, and there's some preventive maintenance things that may be able to prevent that from happening, or some treatments that may prevent that happening, because certainly we don't want to go back to the workplace and end up with another issue that is also respiratory that would cause a lot of confusion. So there's just some anticipation and understanding of the environment, understanding of the buildings and, say, the cooling towers and other things to kind of make sure certain preventive maintenance steps and maybe some extra steps to mitigate these from happening.
Thank you. Dr. Magari, do you have anything to add to that, or are there other concerns that we should be keeping to the forefront when we are planning on our return?
Yeah, I want to think about some of the engineering controls that we've specified. Dr. Chung had referred to them earlier, some barriers that we've put up to splash guards or sneeze guards and things. We've been putting these out there and to get people that still are working, that may come back to work. We want to get them sort of socially distanced even while they have to work next to each other. And what I'm seeing is a lot of knee-jerk reaction. So we're doing as much as we can, but we want to make sure that as we're introducing these controls, we aren't sideways introducing another hazard. For instance, we're putting up barriers every place. We want to make sure that those barriers aren't blocking egress, or that some curtains or shields couldn't get entrained in machinery and things like this. And so when we get back to a little bit more of a new normal, we start phasing folks back in, I want to really think about good old-fashioned safety. We've been so focused on the biological hazard, I want to make sure that we're not losing sight of, our chemical and physical hazards as well. So it's just a realignment of a reset on a more holistic approach to health and safety in the workplace, with a focus on COVID-19 prevention, but making sure we're not losing sight of some of the other basics.